time for Loren Reads to You. Today, I'm reading The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. So if you haven't heard or watched chapters 1 through 8, pause this, save it, and if you choose to, go back, listen or watch those, and then come back to this, because we are up to chapter 9. So make sure you're also subscribing and following wherever you're watching or listening. Get comfy, and let's begin. Chapter 9. The next day, while driving home from work, the classic rock station he always listened to caught his attention when the announcer interrupted the song to give a breaking news report. The guy explained how a woman, Janet Haberdasher, had her house broken into last night. Horace screamed with rage. Why? Why would she do this again? Horace groaned with disappointment. It seemed he had completely forgotten about the fact he was leaving wet, muddy footprints throughout the house. She also found his explosions of pleasure and wasn't happy about that either. I bet it was the husband, and he made them say it was her who was unhappy. That has to be it, Horace realized. His ladies would never be upset about such a thing. No, they love him. Janet loves him. He knew it. This was the husband, just trying to cause more problems. Horace was so angry, he could hardly think straight. Sitting on the bed, he started punching himself in the head, saying the word stupid with every impact of his fist. Finally, he was calmer and feeling like he was floating a bit. Horace closed his eyes and thought of his new fantasies of Chantel, and nothing happened. Little Horace didn't even twitch. He tried thinking about his lady, little Miss Bobby, and of her fearful expression. He thought of the red satin panties and remembering the smell of them. Still nothing. No! Horace was panicking now. He couldn't have this happen to him right now, not after just disrespecting and being disrespected by one of his lovers. He needed to relax, and relieving little Horace really was the only way he truly calmed down. Horace thought, maybe we just need one of our other lovers. Instantly, his hot Betsy came to mind. Yes, little Horace jumped with excitement. He had been so consumed with his relationships with Chantel and his ladies of little Miss Barbie and Janet that he'd been neglecting his other lovers. Shame on him, Horace thought. Horace knew what he needed to do. It was time to see Betsy Clemens again, but this time at night. Now he knew what the secret ingredient was that was missing from their relationship. Fear. He'll get Betsy to get that wonderful, fearful look while she shares her private time with him. Thanks to Chantel and Miss Barbie, he knew now how to get that spark back into their relationship. Eye contact. His father never really explained to him that women need eye contact, but now that he knows, oh, how he'll give it to him now. As Horace pulled up to Betsy's house, he watched Mr. Clemens drive away from the property. It was 10 at night. Horace wondered only briefly where he could be going before allowing himself onto the property and towards his lady for their date. They just had to lock eyes while they were being intimate, and he would be good to go. Horace was sure Betsy must have been upset that she couldn't please him last time. He was sure she wouldn't disappoint him this time. Horace snuck around the property looking for where she was at the moment. Horace could see the light and a glow from a TV screen on the second-story window. A balcony wrapped around the whole second story. All Horace had to do was shimmy up a large oak tree which had limbs that touched the balcony. Within seconds, he was in front of the dim, glowing window. He could see his dear Betsy laying in black lace nightie on her gold and cream Victorian chaise lounge in front of a huge widescreen TV. She was drinking white wine and lying at such a casual angle, Horace could see everything panties usually would cover. She was laying wide open for him, just for him. Her long red hair was cascading down and around her shoulders and chest in lovely tendrils. Horace could see and hear her beautiful voice as she laughed at something on the TV. She didn't seem to notice him standing there, staring at her. Betsy took another sip of wine and spilled it down the front of her nightie. Damn it! Now I'm all sticky and wet. This just came out of the wash, too. At least he got to come and see me in it tonight. Betsy sat up with a disgusted sigh and peeled off the negligee and then laid back down again. She tossed the soiled garment into the hamper with a half-hearted throw, which still made it in. Yes, she said as she laid back down, this time completely naked. She was thrilled she didn't have to get up right away and put it in the hamper. Horace was out of breath and sweaty. See, she adored him. He heard her say at least he got to see her in it tonight. She was doing all of this for him. Little Horace was excited, but not excited enough. It was still missing this new key component he needed, the eye contact and the fear. The window he was in front of was actually French glass doors. He kept waiting for her to see him with little Horace in hand, but nothing. After several minutes, Betsy got up and walked out of the room. Minutes felt like hours, and Betsy hadn't come back. Little Horace began to get very impatient. Horace decided to step into the room and see where his pretty lady went. The glass door squeaked open. He only took a few steps into the room before Betsy came back in, looking confused. She must have heard the sound. Completely naked, Betsy stood in front of Horace, frozen in shock. Her eyes wide with fear, her mouth open and gaping at him. Horace began to jerk little Horace while keeping Betsy's eye contact. Women love eye contact, he thought. Betsy looked down at what Horace was doing in disgust and tried to cover her body with her delicate hands. Horace just moaned at her. Betsy cried out in disgust. You vile piece of shit! You go in prison for this when you hear? You're that disgusting peeping-tom that's terrorizing the city. I'm going to tell everybody. I'm calling the police, and I'm going to describe you down to that tiny speck in your hand. No wonder you're depraved with that tiny little member like that. Betsy screamed at him while grabbing the silk robe that was draped over the chair nearby. My lady, how can you speak to your lover like that? Horace asked, hurt and shocked. Your lady? Lover? No way in hell or heaven, you sick deformed freak. How can you be that stupid? Betsy asked as she threw the ornate Fabergé egg that was sitting on the table next to her at Horace. The marble egg hit Horace on the side of his skull with a loud thud. Horace could feel the blood trickling down the side of his head. The pain was incredible. It messed with his vision momentarily, and he swore he saw an old carpet soaked in fresh blood underneath his feet. That was it. Between the sensation of being hit in the head, the image of that carpet, and her calling him stupid, he snapped. No one calls him stupid. Never again. Awful flashbacks of things that he had blocked out so long ago assaulted him once more. Flash images of being a child and getting called stupid enveloped him. Memories of pain endured long ago were suddenly remembered, refelt, and resurfaced with such rage and such force. Horace lost all control and completely snapped. How dare he be called stupid? How dare she cause him pain? Not one of his ladies. Never. That was the last thought he remembered having before he raged out and hit Betsy across her face so hard she slammed into the wall next to her and crashed onto the floor. Horace then grabbed her by the ears and hair. While shaking with rage, he locked eyes with her. Nice and tight now, he whispered. Horace couldn't discern what was fantasy and what was reality, nor was he able to care. He was too wrapped up and lost in the pain and humiliation just inflicted on him by the woman who was supposed to love him. Too many memories that had been hidden away were now flooding his every sense, and were also now blending together with all his sexual fantasies. He was also entirely too far gone in his pent-up desires for it to matter. Betsy's pupils got wider than Chantel's or Miss Barbie's got. Her mouth was wide and gaping open when he tightened his grip and twisted with all his might. Flashes of his shower fantasies invaded his reality. Horace shuddered in orgasmic release when he heard Betsy's neck snap. He never realized how fun it was to twist it back and forth several times before he ripped it off of her shoulders. Her eyes were still wide open and encapsulated with fear. Her mouth was locked open in shock. There was only one thing little Horace wanted to do. Demanded to do is more like it. Within seconds, little Horace was pumping in and out of dead Betsy's mouth. Horace spent a large amount of time repeating this experience before putting her skill with her head aside and tried out that pretty body of hers. A few hours later, and Horace climbed off Betsy's dead body for what had to be the 10th time with a sigh. It was the best sex of his life. Her naked and decapitated body was still propped up in the shower from many, many reenactments of his shower fantasy. He left her body there and left the shower on for her. He knew he'd better let her get cleaned up after such an amazing date. "Oh, it's bedtime, baby," Horace said, looking at Betsy's decapitated head that was sitting on the chaise lounge like she was still watching TV. His fluid was still dripping from her mouth when he kissed her on the forehead. Betsy was his best lady yet, Horace thought. Horace was contemplating another round of Betsy's head when he heard the sound of a car door closing. "Shit! Your husband's home!" Horace jumped up and pulled on his pants. He closed up little Horace and went to Betsy. "Thanks for the great time, Betsy." Horace kissed her on the top of her head before walking out onto the second-floor balcony. From there, he watched the husband walk in the front door and close it before Horace shimmied back down the tree and jogged off the property, down the road to his truck. Once he was safely inside his vehicle, he sighed so happily content. "I knew Betsy wouldn't disappoint me again," Horace said out loud before driving off. She knew he had to be pushed like that. She had to make him snap to consummate their love fully. "That was so good, my dear lady, to do that for us," Horace said as he pulled up to his place. He was exhausted and a mess. He needed a shower and bed. The shower ran red for what seemed ages. He didn't even realize she splashed him with her fluids as much as she did. All that blood caked all over him. He had no idea. Good thing no one saw him. What a sight that would have been. His clothes were soaked in the sink with hot water and detergent. He wasn't sure if they'd be salvageable at all, but he figured he might as well try. Horace thought before he fell asleep with visions of Betsy's head dancing in his. What a lady. That was Chapter 9 of The Bedtime Killer by Loren Malloy. That's me. Make sure you're subscribing and following wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you'd like this book for yourself, you can get it on Amazon in paperback and Kindle. Make sure you join us for Chapter 10, because it's getting good.